You talk a lot about AI agents. Where should the product managers start?
I think at this stage should be the motivation for building an AI agent for yourself as a PM.
Does using AI agents add value, or your manager will feel like you're doing less work?
Don't let AI get in between customers, user research.
I see that AI models are still not good at
You can use AI a lot and you should, but if you resist that urge, you'll have an advantage.
What could AI agents become in the next few years?
10 years from now, we're going to look back and we'll say, we spent time doing what?
Hello, welcome back to another podcast episode of our Product Founder. Today we have Tal Raviv. Super excited to talk about AI and AI agents. Tal, can you a little bit introduce yourself?
Sure. I just spent around 15 years as a product manager and SaaS founder at different stages of companies. My sweet spot is startups. I love startups. And for the last 6 months, I describe what I'm doing as a full-time LinkedIn fart. So I'm a content creator, course creator, and now I'm really specializing in helping product managers use AI in their work.
That's awesome. I mean, I really love what you're writing and you're putting out there. So it's like really quality content. This stuff we need to show like how we can actually use AI in the products. I know that you have worked in some incredible products, from building Patreon to being the first PM at Riverside, which we are using today. Amazing product. What's something from your early days as a PM that you still carry with you today? A lesson, a mindset, or even a mistake that you're grateful for?
Oh, lots of mistakes that I'm grateful for. You know, for some reason, the first thing that comes to mind is just to make things fun. I think it's really important to remember that working in tech, it's a sitcom. No matter what company you're at, big, small, it's a sitcom. The characters write themselves. And on one hand, always remember that, like any interaction, don't take it too seriously. It's, again, all these startups are a sitcom. But then more than that, it's, you only live once. So everything you can do, whether it's with your team, with yourself, in your choice of company, in your choice of product, the way you do a kickoff, or the way you communicate something, or the way you do a demo, or how you structure your day, it's really, really important that it's fun. That's what gives me the energy, and why I love it so much.
And just fun of you enjoying the work, or like also like sharing the fun with the team members?
I think if you're having fun, it's contagious, and it's very hard to fake. And part of what makes something fun is, right, when you involve other people. Could be silliness for its own sake, right? And could be just being really, could be like pranks, or taking something somebody said in a meeting and making it into a big poster and putting it on the wall. But it can be how you present something, the analogies you use, and how you tell stories, right? And showing what you do take seriously and what you don't take seriously. And I think it just comes out. It's very hard for it not to come out, and it's very hard to fake.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think we as a product manager, we have such a big influence on the team. So if we're stressed all the time, and then we are like also putting a lot of pressure on them, they will also get stressed, and then the fun is like out of the window. So I truly believe that with the fun, you can also have better influence, I think, with people if you're like kind of closer to them, if there's some more like closer relationship than them, other than just like you're the boss and they're the employee. I don't think that's going to work out. Let's pause here for a second. The other day I was looking into our channel analytics, and I noticed many of you guys are watching a lot of our episodes but not yet subscribed to our YouTube page or Spotify. I will ask you as a favor, please support us by subscribing to our YouTube page and Spotify page, and I will promise you I will do everything in my power to make each episode better and better. Thank you.
Yeah, and I also think that because we are, as product managers, we're in a role that has, they say influence over authority, or influence not authority. People have to trust your motives, right? People fundamentally want to work on something that they care about. They want to know that you care about it just like they do, and if you're just more open about the fact that you're having fun, you're doing this, again, the word is fun. You're doing this because you care. You want to see it happen. You believe in it's something you want to see out in the world. And you also believe that the day-to-day should be fun. If you genuinely demonstrate that, I think people become more at ease about when you do ask for something, when something does become really important to you, right? They know that you're not just optimizing for your next promotion or some metric that is short term. People really they'll trust you more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the more senior you become as a PM, the more you realize that how much of this role requires influence rather, as you just said, authority. Now, slowly shifting toward AI, are there product management skills that you think have become more or less important in the age of Gen AI?
Good question. First of all, investing in the craft of product management as it is in the age of AI becomes even more important. There's a famous study that was done a few months ago that came out of MIT. Many of your listeners might have heard of this, where the researchers worked together with a large science research company. I think it was a chemical research company. The company had, I think, hundreds or maybe thousands of scientists, and they provided them all with similar AI tools. And then they wanted to see kind of the impact it had on their performance, on their impact. And what came out of that was the scientists who were already, on paper and already considered to be high performers and excellent employees, they benefited a ton from getting AI tools. But everybody else barely got any benefit out of it. And I think that there's a lot to learn from that. I think, they didn't do the study of product managers, but it feels right that that's going to be true of a lot of other professions where there's craft, there's experience, there's knowledge work. So first of all, I think all the fundamentals of product management remain the same. I think product managers who, despite AI, stay in the weeds as much as possible and don't let AI get in between them and raw data, and don't let AI get in between them with customers, user research, actual what people wrote in a product survey, and so on, have an advantage. So you can use AI a lot, and you should, but if you resist that urge, you'll have an advantage. So there's a lot of counterintuitive things. But I think also being able to galvanize people and rally people and get them to rally around a story is no less important, because there's still going to be people. The talent stack might change, and teams might operate differently, but there's still going to be people. And I think a lot of things are going to stay the same. Just having product intuition for your particular customers, being able to make good judgment calls. Like at the end of the day, AI can do a lot. I think it's going to be a very long time before it's going to make the high stakes decisions. So I think product managers are still going to be there, and they need to be trusted to make those decisions. So you have to build that trust. I think the way you do that, it goes back to staying in the weeds. So everything I've described is really similar to what great product managers do today. I think it just becomes more important.
Yeah, that's so true. I feel like the AI is still not so good in terms of like creativity. And I think as a PM, we have like a set of skill set, and we have like a problem that we are trying to solve in the most creative way. And I feel like that's where still AI is just really sticking to the fundamentals. And I tried a lot to use the LLMs for marketing purposes, and like coming up with some amazing marketing things. I mean, it's good for like writing copyrights and stuff like that. But like when you think about like an extraordinary marketing thing that you can do, it doesn't really provide you much. I don't know, how's your experience with that?
I think creativity with especially AI has like really made this obvious to me, but it made me reflect on this and put this into words. So it's going to be a little philosophical, but I think creativity divides into two things. And think about what happens in your mind, Amir, where you're thinking about marketing ideas, right? You have a goal, and part of your brain is thinking of new things and generating new things. And part of your brain is like, yes, that, or no, that wouldn't work because of this, or that's a cool idea, but like, let's develop, right? So there's actually kind of two dynamics happening in your mind. I actually think AI is really good at the first one. I haven't figured out how to use AI to write for me very well, not like LinkedIn posts or emails, for a lot of reasons, but it is really good at suggesting a lot of things. And then I go over the suggestions and I can discern, okay, that one lands really well. I had to write a wedding speech for my younger sister. Once I kind of had this idea for a concept, me and my other sister had to write the wedding speech. So we used AI to like organize all of our ideas and suggest some more ideas. But at the end of the day, we had to go over its suggestions and be like, that's really funny. That's going to make the people at the reception laugh. That's not funny. We should never say that. Things like that. And actually did really help with creativity, but it wasn't good at the second half of creativity, which is discernment, judgment, taste, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Now, shifting toward the AI agents, I know that you talk about them a lot. So where should PMs start?
The reason PMs should build AI agents for themselves is, even though it's really early, unlike a lot of other professions, as PMs, we're going to be the ones expected to be building AI agents most likely, right? No matter what company you work for. We're gonna be probably PMing those kinds of products. So it's really good to just build that intuition today. And what better way to do that than, of course, to do something that you actually care about, right? So there's dog fooding, just clicking around and then getting bored. And there's like, I need to build this for myself because I really care about it. So that, I think, at this stage should be the motivation for building an AI agent for yourself as a PM. And I think the best place to start is to ask yourself, if my manager said, hey, guess what? You have a junior intern for the next year. They got top of their class, great grades, and they're very hardworking, but they majored in something completely unrelated and have no work experience. But they're very motivated, right? And then they sit next to you. What would you have them do? Or you can have them work on anything, help you with anything. Like, what are the tasks that you wish you could take off your plate so that you can focus on something else, right? An example could be prepare me for a user research call, or schedule all this stuff, or a bit of administration, or go over my email inbox and answer these with these examples, or right. There's endless examples of how to use a junior intern so that you could focus on more time with customers, more time with your teammates, right? More time with strategy, more time communicating. So that's where I would start as a PM.
Okay, and I know that you have built internal tools using AI agents that feel like a product team superpower. How do you decide what deserves to be agentified versus what should stay manual?
A good rule of thumb goes back to kind of what we were saying earlier about, don't let AI get in between you and the raw customer data. So AI is really good for traversing a lot of data, for noticing outliers, right? For clustering things, for classifying. And, I think a less good case is say, hey, we have a ton of answers coming in every single hour on this product survey, NPS, CSAT, whatever, thumbs up, thumbs down, comment type of in-product feature survey. And, a less good thing to do would be, okay, could the AI give me a daily summary of the themes? Something a little bit better would be give me a daily summary of the themes with exact quotes, right? And even better than that would be, so keep track of everything. And if there's something that we hear all the time and we know about, don't share it with me anymore. But if some new theme pops up, I want you to notify me, and show me exactly what they said and how many times that happened. Show me all the examples. Just take all the examples and put them in an email as is, right? So there's parts that you could make manual, which is this is not adding any value. It's a lot of clicks. It's making me tired. It's taking up brain cells that I could be using for other things. And there's just stuff no, this is the stuff I should be, really using my energy for, which is raw customer data.
Okay. And do you think when in a companies now, when you say I as a PM, I'm using 20 AI agents which are doing my job, does it add value to you, or it's just something maybe your manager feels like you're working less now? What do you think?
I think that great PMs constantly have this nagging feeling that they're not spending enough time with customers, and that they're not spending enough time with their teammates, right, and communicating, and that there's just never enough of that. The amount that we do, that we pat ourselves on the back for, is still very, very, very tiny. So the moment you can take administrative work, communication work, drafting an update, right? All these things that take so much time and are very mentally exhausting. And you can then take that energy, forget the time, just take that energy, right? And spend more time with your teammates, spend more time with customers. You're going to be an infinitely more trusted PM, I think, by your team and by your boss and by your leadership.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, in a way, also some workplaces, if you're more busy, then you're working harder, so you're a better employee. I have worked in those places that
definitely,
it's not necessarily the result that you bring. It's just if you show your calendar and you have 40 hours of meeting, whoa, you're so busy. It's all booked in for the next 3 months. And I find that also a very, very stupid way of thinking. But still, I know many places kind of see that. They check your calendar and I see that you have like a kind of like an empty week. And no, that's not true. I'm working on a certain thing. I just don't need to be in a call all the time. And it's very interesting for me.
Yeah, I think everybody's worked in a place like that at least once, if not many times. And it's, as somebody, if you care about impact, value, being close to the, real incentives of the customer, like having, real incentives of the company, having invested in a stake, not literally equity, just you really want to see things succeed, then being measured on weird metrics that are poor proxies for value is very demoralizing. My personal question I ask myself is, am I, for a particular thing that I'm spending my time on, am I doing this because I'm needed, or am I doing this because it's valuable? And obviously everything that's valuable is also needed, but it's a Venn diagram. So, valuable is very small and in the middle. But there's a lot of things that we're needed for. People are happy to dump stuff on us. That's the rule of thumb. Am I being valuable? Or am I just being needed? And if I'm just being needed, is there something else that could help with that? Could it be another teammate? Could it be a better ritual? Could it be a different process? And of course, now we can add to that. Could it be an AI agent?
Yeah, I really like that way of thinking. If we look at it from that perspective, we have to rethink a lot of the task and a lot of things that we are doing. Maybe not everyone wants to feel like they're not needed, but they're just there to do certain things. Like they're not really adding value. That's why I think we had this massive layoffs as well, because there were a lot of product managers who their title was product manager, but they were not actually doing a product management role. They were like maybe a project manager.
Yeah, I think like you said, a busy calendar, right, is a poor proxy, and eventually it catches up, right? It could take you so far, but either if a company's managing everybody like that, I wouldn't bet on that company. And if a company is doing well, people who are being managed that way eventually are not gonna have a good ROI for that company.
Yeah, definitely. When you talked about think about an AI agent as a junior intern, what I'm thinking is that, do you treat them like a team member with job description, and how human do you get when you're designing their behavior?
A good question. I think that gets into the tool of choice, because it depends on what you're building it in. Eventually, you're either going to be typing in instructions like you would to a person. That's more like the Zapier, and I think Cassidy and Gumloop is going in that direction. I'm sure they're all going to go in that direction eventually. You might recognize that from Lovable Bolt Replit, where you type in natural language and what you want to see. There's tools that are, you talk to it and communicate what you want more in terms of the way you would a person. And you have other tools that have an advantage and disadvantage of, it's more like drag and drop, building a process, flow charts, right? Like flow diagrams that you're kind of configuring. So in that case, you still have to do that work of thinking, okay, if it was a person, what would I have them do? What information do they need, right? So you have to kind of do that step a little bit more in yourself. I think for no matter what tool you use, you have to think in terms of what do I want? Why do I want that? What does success look like? So it's really important to do something, to delegate something that you've done a few times before. You have some examples, updates you've written in the past, right? Emails you've written in the past, whatever it is. So I think no matter what you choose, no matter what tool you choose, the thing that this very much has in common with hiring and onboarding a person is you just need to be clear with yourself, like a manager. What do I want? Why do I want that? Why is that valuable? What does success look like? Things like that.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Which AI agents that you have built has delivered the biggest return on time saved, or it has improved your quality of work?
I've worked with a few product managers to help them build agents, and I think the one that I think was most robust and at the end of the day did save a lot of time was writing updates. So anything where you would be opening a bunch of tabs and bringing in information and then trying to, at the end of your week, like while you're exhausted and you have to put out this update so you can go home, like that kind of thing, I think is really, really, really valuable, saves a lot of time. There's a lot of those. It's probably not the sexiest, kind of example, but I think in practice, think of how much time we spend writing updates and think of how robust that example is for an agent to accomplish. I think that's a really good place to start.
That's so true. Do you have any other example?
So another one is preparing you for a call. So this is something that like salespeople do a lot, but I think is really valuable for product managers. So if you have a lot of user research calls that kind of appear on your calendar, maybe people can schedule it with Calendly inside your product or something like that. But you're back to back going between meetings all the time. Or it could be that you have calls with really big customers. You could work in a B2B enterprise type of environment. And there's a lot of context. And from the customer's point of view, right, you should know everything about them, right? They don't know that you're a different team or that the last guy they talked to, is in a different building or whatever. So you need to go ahead and read the recent correspondence, see their recent pain points, right? Understand when was the last time they talked, with whom. That takes a lot of work. So being able to scan things like Gong, CRM, right? Check Slack for recent mentions of that customer's name and bring that all together and then DM you quickly, 10 minutes before the meeting. Digest, I think, is also something that happens a lot and is very time consuming.
Yeah, that sounds very useful. And when you're talking about these AI agents, I'm just thinking, well, how would it look like in like a couple years or also in a decade? Like how much of our work will be done by an AI agent, or even maybe new areas within the AI? Because we used to have AI also in the past. Then the Gen AI came, which was kind of something relatively new.
I look at it the other way around. I say, 10 years from now, we're going to look back at now and we'll say, we spent time doing what? Just like we look back at, more than 30, 40 years ago before there was computer spreadsheet, software. And we say, wait, people did accounting calculations by hand? It's crazy, right?
No, I love that. No, makes a lot of sense. So now going back to a PM who wants to start using AI engines, there's a lot of platforms out there. So I just want to know, how do you evaluate these AI platforms like Zapier, Lindy, or Relay? And what makes one more PM friendly than the other? Or if there are other platforms which I didn't mention their names that you use.
Yeah. I'll say something a little surprising, counterintuitive. I think the first criteria is, what is your company already using? So for example, a lot of marketing teams from the last 5-10 years have Zapier accounts. And so your company already has an invoice with them, already has permissions for things that are very sensitive in your company that's already trusted. So it's not an endorsement of Zapier per se, but just because they've been around the longest. But it could be if you're other people on your team have already started using Lindy, or your sales team has already started using Cassidy. Whatever it is, that's a really good place to start because it's a lot less friction. The tricky part about AI agents is, like a person, probably more than a person, is the permissions and access to data and who has write access, read access, all this stuff. So that's actually the first place I would start, first criteria. I think all the other criteria pale in comparison compared to that because it's very practical. And beyond that, what I recommend doing for anybody listening, product managers trying to choose which tools to use, describe what it is that you want to do in prompt to any LLM like ChatGPT 4.0, 3.0 Mini that has web search ability. And describe what you want to do and say, hey, use only the help center documentation of Lindy, Zapier, Gumloop, Cassidy, right? All these Zapier, and tell me what would it take to build this in each one of them, and then say, okay, great. Which one of those was the simplest? Which one of those do you think is the best suited? Right? And you might have to say don't take any marketing material into account. Take only what you wrote above, little hacks like that. But to get started, I think it's a really cool way to really get a quick lay of the land and have AI read their help center documentation and recommend to you what you should do.
No, I really like it. I think I love it the way you explained it as well, because I was just thinking, okay, maybe someone's not using Zapier or any of these tools, but then how can they start? But then when you said like you can use the LLM to find what is suitable for you, and then I was again thinking, yeah, but what if the LLM is being influenced by the marketing material? But then again, you said like, no, just make sure that you exclude that out. Yeah, I think I would definitely also myself try it out and see what the results will be. And of course, one size doesn't fit all.
All those details that you just mentioned about this, prompt. The only way I got to that is I tried it. I said, hey, it would be really cool to have AI tell me which agent platform to use. And I just typed in, which one should I use for this task? And then I was like, wait, this is all marketing crap. This isn't useful. And I was like, don't use any marketing material, And then each time I did it, I just said, okay, well, I don't want that. Let me just add another sentence back to don't do this and only use that. And then at the end, it became something useful. So I'm just saying that because there's nothing magical about that prompt and nothing that anybody listening can't do themselves. It's just a little bit of iteration.
Do you have any like top 2 favorite platforms for the AI agents?
I really appreciate the platforms. Personally, I like the ones where you can use natural language. So that doesn't mean that they're more effective in some cases. It's just like I appreciate that's where things are going. And I believe all of them are going to go in this direction. So, for example, Zapier is only natural language. This is Zapier Agents, not the classic Zapier. The other really cool one is Cassidy, where you can type in, again, what you want in natural language, and then it'll make the flow diagram for you. And then you can keep configuring it. So I think that gives you a little bit more granularity. And then Gumloop, I know that they're working on that too, but even today, what I just said, that AI flow where AI tells you what to do, they built that in just for their help center documentation, just like with special context just about Gumloop. So I was able to build an agent in Gumloop by just describing what I want, and then it told me what to do, and I did it manually. But I think I think any tool that doesn't require engineering thinking, right? It might not be coding, but it's still programming. You still have to think a lot in terms of subroutines and inputs and modules, and it's fun as a hobby, right? But like we don't have time, we don't have energy. I just want to say what I want and move on to being valuable. So anything that feels more like high-level instructions instead of thinking about the how. Those are the tools I appreciate the most.
Okay. And is there a point where a task becomes too complex for an agent and you need to dial it back to make it simpler automation or a human process?
Yeah, I think it's hard to come up with a rule because things are shifting all the time. But a lot of times a regular automation, right, without an LLM in the middle, it's fun to use AI and it helps us build our intuition and it helps us get a sense for what works and doesn't work. But I think your question is exactly the point of why PMs should be building it themselves, to hit those barriers, to realize this isn't working or this isn't necessary, right? And then build that intuition when they start to look at their own products and say, here, we have an opportunity to build an AI agent. Here's where it's going to be really good at. Here's where it's not. Because I know I've been using it myself for a while, and I know that this is where it hits the limits. If these tools, that this is all they do, right? If the frontier models or these AI agent companies, that's what they've completely specialized in, they still hit these limits, then of course we're going to hit these limits. So that feeling it for yourself, right? Like, and it's going to change over time. That's the real key here.
That's very interesting. So based on your experience, what are the limits now? What did you face? I'm sure there are a lot of limits, but like I'm just curious. When you're imagining of these AI agents, maybe you're thinking they will do these insane things. But then maybe when we start to use them, you use them, you're like, nah, this is just for now doing few things. One
enormous limit that I don't see going away anytime soon is AI agents today have a hard time closing the feedback loop. So they'll do something in a Google Sheet or a Google Doc, and it'll be something that, any junior intern would be able to look at, even without being an expert, and say, that's wrong. Like, I just overwrote all the headers of the spreadsheet. or that's not what I was asked to do. That's, and those are wrong answers, or that's the wrong text in the wrong place, or that's not readable or valuable to anybody. And AI agents today can't do that. It's not because they're not smart. And this is why it's going to take a long time for this to be overcome. It's because it's way easier for companies to give write access than it is for them to give read access. And so it's just like with AI prototyping tools. Anybody who's used them knows that it does something, there's an error, and then you have to paste the error back in and be like, it didn't work. And then it's like, okay, I tried something new, and you're like, okay, it didn't work. Well, it's like, come on, if a developer did that, you'd just like, you'd be very exhausted of that person very, very fast. Like, did you even try the code before you gave it to me? Like, did you run it at least once? Like, we've all been there. So it's not because they're not motivated. It's because they can't see their own output. You see some of the AI prototyping tools overcome this in a really cool way, which is they self-screenshot their own web app, like in a headless browser. And then they can look at the screenshot. So that's an example of it going in the right direction. But when you look at AI agents, because they're connected to company data and CRMs, right, giving somebody create contact permission in Salesforce is one thing. Giving it read all contacts or search all contacts permission in Salesforce is a completely different, risk profile. So that's a tough challenge. I think that's, where the output is unclear, or you don't necessarily know what you want, or even basic errors, standard mistakes. Takes a lot of babysitting and iterating still.
Very interesting. And are they expensive also at scale? Because I can see that the tokens price has decreased over time. How much you used to pay for the ChatGPT's API is like now like 1/10. And do you see this kind of pattern? Is it expensive now? Do you think will it get cheaper?
So I think there's microeconomics at play here. Founders of AI agent companies will, I think, rightfully say, you should be comparing us to the cost of a person who you would hire to do the same task. And they're right. That's the bar. If it's more expensive than that, just hire a person. At the same time, I think there's going to be competition to bring that down. So the AI agent company's dream is to price on value, and competition between them is going to drive them to price closer to cost. And like you said, costs are going down of the frontier model. So I think there's going to be a premium on things like quality. Maybe OpenAI will have something for a while that others don't. Maybe one company executes better than others, so it can command a premium. But I think over time, costs will dramatically go down.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So what's a wild, borderline, absurd agent idea that you have wanted to build just for fun, but you haven't yet? I remember you talked about something about nutrition on another podcast, but that's not really wild.
Right. That's logical. I would love to do something. I spend a lot of my time watching surf cams, so live feeds of the sea, and seeing if there's waves right now, and if I can recognize anybody. Usually I can't. I have seen Surfline recently do what I was really hoping that they would do for years. In some beaches they're doing this, which is they can recognize on the video feed that there was a wave, and they can recognize whether somebody was riding it or not, and then they make a graph out of it, so you can actually browse the video by waves that somebody's actually riding. I would love to do something where, to like play on that. Okay, let's take that even further. Today, I know people who, if they catch a really great wave and they know that they're on a beach where there's a cam, they will look at their watch and write down remember the time, and then they'll go back and try to find themselves. It could be really cool to have, and actually I know there's photographers as well, right? That they try to take pictures, and people have to find each other later on Facebook groups to find who it was. So if there's some way where, there's like an AI agent that knew who was out when you check in, you check out, and it could also keep track of waves that were ridden. Maybe, you could tell it like what color surfboard or who knows what, right? Maybe combine that together with photographers and the timestamps of their photos and so on, and just kind of like automate all this thing. So you finish showering, you get back in front of your computer, and you have potentially for high resolution, not just because of the webcam, but because of the photographer, photos, waiting for you, tagged, and you don't have to hope that your friend might see you on some random Facebook group.
This is a very interesting idea. I also did surfing this summer in north of Spain.
Oh, cool.
Close to Santander. Yeah, it was my first time. And yeah, it's so hard to catch a friend doing really doing a good surfing. So I think people will definitely pay money for that. It's a good SaaS idea. Like if you get like a cool video of you surfing, I would definitely pay for that.
Yeah, being a surf photographer is a lot of patience, a lot of hard work. So, and very expensive.
Definitely. Looking ahead, what's one of the area of Gen AI that you're particularly excited about in terms of its potential to transform product management?
One thing I'm really excited about, there's a paper out of Stanford about synthetic users. And when most people think about synthetic users, this is what I used to think is, you go into ChatGPT and you say, you are a 45-year-old, father of two, who votes for this political party, and you have, this type of job, and you live in this part of the country. What do you think of this? This policy. What do you think? What do you think of this product? Right? And I think anybody hearing me say that is probably like a sinking feeling of like, how good could that be? How valuable can that be? That's not going to replace, not going to be so valuable as product managers. So there's a few researchers who, what they did is they said, let's take that further. They interviewed 1,000 people, each one for, I think, something like roughly 2 hours. And they took the transcript of those interviews, and then they put that in basically a chat thread. They put that in the context window. They did a few more things. They did like some derivative stuff where they're like, okay, what would a psychologist say about this person? What would a marketer say about that? I forgot what would different experts say about this person? And they put that in the context window as well. And then they were able to ask questions of that person. And when they did it that way, it was ridiculously accurate. Because then they also asked them in real life, and it was ridiculously accurate. So I think synthetic users, we have to be really careful here. But I think synthetic users will be very valuable, at least to disprove something. I don't think it can prove something, but I think it can save you from going too far with something that's like easy to disprove, or at least it can raise yellow flags, raise red flags, right? Before you take up your time, customers' time, and it can, I think you can spend more time on things that are high signal and say, okay, wait, now let's take a lot more time on this idea, spend more time with customers here. So I think it can kind of help navigate if we get synthetic users right. There's definitely going to be lots of blind spots for that, and I think people who succeed well as product managers using synthetic users will be the ones who know when to use them and when not, and how to, the craft of taking it with a grain of salt. But that's not a reason, not to be excited about it. I think there's a lot of time and energy that could save.
That's very interesting. How do you think that amount of data would be gathered from people's really personal opinions? I might not say which political party I'm a fan of, right?
The original paper, I think, dealt with policy, if I'm not mistaken. It was like, it was more for government and that kind of policy research. But if you take that for product management, I don't care what political party my customers vote for, but it's more, you already have a lot of user research transcripts. You already have a lot of sales calls. You have a lot of customer success calls. There's a lot of that kind of like very raw, granular data, very real data that you can use. So I think for product management, this is really worth trying.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting and sounds something like really big that is going to bring a lot of value and also super new. So I really like that.
Yeah.
Tal, we are slowly getting close to the end of the podcast episode. Is there something that you would like to share with the listeners, a project, a course that you have been working on?
Sure, yeah. I teach a course on Maven called Build Your Personal PM Productivity System and AI Copilot. I guess that title's a bit outdated because now we're also going to cover a little bit of AI prototyping and AI agents. It's about low-tech, non-AI productivity fundamentals. And then the last third or half of the course is about using AI. So I really believe that just jumping into AI as product managers without having the basics of productivity that have just to do with ourselves and our inner game and our mental clarity is counterproductive. So I really we spend a lot of time on productivity, and then we continue on with the course to all sorts of AI tools. And the course is really meant for people who would like to be very hands-on. It's very much about implementation, very much about lots of open Q&A, lots of office hours. Everybody gets my personal WhatsApp. It's for people who really want to make sure that they're implementing it, not just reading about it or listening.
I love that. I mean, you have great knowledge in this area, so I'm sure the course is really great for anyone who's interested. You can obviously also find the access link in the description. Also, Tal, where can the listeners find you?
I'm mostly on LinkedIn, so look for Tal Raviv.
Okay, we will put that in the description. Tal, it was fantastic talking with you. Thank you so much for joining this podcast episode.
Thank you, Amir. Thanks for having me.
Wow, you made it till the end. I'm very proud of you. Comment down below which part of the podcast did you like the most and who should I interview next. Also, on the screen, you will see a lot of our other great episodes that you should definitely check out.